we'll kick it off. If anyone wants to ask anything, obviously we've got stuff relating to tier sets, potentially even stats, trinkets, TOS gear in general, changes that are happening. So who wants to kick us off by what we're going to talk about first of all? I wish this was slightly different actually. I'm scrolling up and down the various images I've got to highlight things that I know we're going to end up talking about. See you later. Divine Hammer nerf. Alright, okay. Where are we? Patch notes then. So these are our patch notes. So we've got a nerf to Divine Hammer. It's the only thing that has been nerfed. Things in general have been buffed. The nerf to Divine Hammer is only to stop us using it in single target. It was a bit of a piss take that we can basically use the same set of talents for every single fight. It's nice to be able to do that. It causes problems for me because I knew that this was coming. So for the last couple of weeks I've been getting myself out of those habits. And it resulted in me ending up in a challenge mode, not challenge mode, behave yourself, Mythic Plus dungeon yesterday. And I got into it, and then we started, and then I straight away realised, oh dear, I don't have Divine Hammer. I've got Blade of Wrath. This is not going to go well. But it is only there to stop us using it on single target. It's still a DPS increase whenever you've got more than one target. Even 2 targets, it's still a benefit to use it in that situation. Just not single target. Now, that does leave us with a bit of a problem because obviously you have some raid fights where it's mostly single target, but every now and then there's some ads and then you have to think to yourself, what should we do about that? So you are going to have to sort of think about that. Like Gul'dan, for example, I suppose is one example. I can only use examples from Nighthold because I don't have enough experience. I have no experience with the 2 Sargeras bosses. I've only read up a little bit on them. But yeah, with Gul'dan, a lot of it's, I mean, at the start you've got, I suppose it's 2 targets and you've got the eyes every now and then, but a lot of the fight is just single target. Repentance and Blood, Blinding Light not doing damage, it's a random change to make. I don't know. I mean, Blinding Light technically was on our priority list. It was not very often, I mean, I didn't even take it on Mythic Plus a lot of the time. I used to, actually, at the start of Legion, I used to take it in Mythic Plus because as a very, very low priority AoE damage ability, it was all right. But once you've got a reasonable amount of haste, you find yourself never actually needing it because it was like pretty much lowest priority. I didn't actually even notice whether Repentance does a reasonable amount of damage on anything you'd use it on. Maybe, I don't, because we used to sometimes use the Repentance on the ads at the end of Gul'dan fight, like on the very last bit. I didn't actually notice if it was doing damage to them. I know it didn't really seem to do damage on the challenge mode encounter when I used it. High sensation. But I mean, it is what it is now. So they're all just pure cooldowns. I suppose Hammer of Justice still does damage if you've got that god-awful legendary helm. Fortunately, it's the one legendary for Ret I don't have. And I hope that's always going to be the case. I have had to switch back to Ret spec, though, to try and build up some bad luck protection in my case, so that I can get the chest and the ring when the patch goes live. Knowing my luck, just before the patch goes live, that's when I'll get the bloody helm. But yeah, you can see all the rest of our damage, because they've updated this now. I was talking yesterday on my WoW Flash that, you know, the patch notes, only had this thing here. They didn't have the other bits, so it was like they'd forgotten about it. But they've now put them in. So our overall damage, or all the other abilities, are going up by 3.5%. So that's fine. I mean, I don't know where it puts us in terms of everything else, because a buff can also be a nerf if everyone else is buffed more. But I don't think that's the case. But I really don't know how to compare to other classes. I don't read up on other classes, really, and only to the point where to tell me enough to know to be able to play them to a reasonable level myself. But those are all our changes higher. So yeah, Repentance, Blinding Light are not going to do damage. They were not damaged. They're not supposed to be damage dealing abilities. I don't know why they ever did damage in the first place, I have to say. I have no idea. And the Blessing of the Ashspring, I might as well mention it. No one's asking here, but that's hopefully because you already know. But people do keep looking at this as, oh, that's a nerf. Because in our current gear, it's technically a nerf. Because 4% of our strength will not equal 2,000 strength. But we're going to get to a point where suddenly our gear is going to start exploding up again in terms of item level, because not only will Mythic Plus give us better item level gear if we're pushing it, but also just the gear we're getting from Tomb of Sargeras is going to very quickly exit. I mean, Heroic Tomb of Sargeras is giving 915 item level stuff. It's 905 from Mythic Nighthold, so we're going to go up straight away. And or even if you just do Heroic, you know, the difference between Heroic, normal Tomb of Sargeras and say Heroic Nighthold. Again, it's the same size gaps, plus 10 item levels. So item level is going to go up a lot. It's soon going to come to the point where this is a buff for us. So that's a buff, that's a buff. This is a nerf, but it's a sort of ability we're not supposed to be using all the time anyway. They did also nerf the tier bonus, yes. So let's put those up next. Gordon Bennett. I wish I could scroll up here. So these are our set bonuses now. So for the tier 19, at the moment, our 2 set is that Holy Power spending attacks deal 10% more damage. It's going to be 7%. So a bit of a nerf on the tier 19. It had to be nerfed because otherwise we just weren't going to be wanting tier 20. Tier 20, the set bonuses are not actually as good as the tier 19 ones. And I can imagine from Blizzard's point of view, it's a little bit dodgier. I'll talk about the trinkets after this then. It's a little bit dicier because they can't just straight away make the next set of tier bonuses clearly better, you know, because your item level's already going up as well. It can get out of hand. Maybe they just do this in advance knowing full well that they can. Maybe this is just going to be a pattern, that they're just going to nerf the previous set bonuses if they get to this situation. Now, the thing is, because I only sort of realised this week, I don't actually know when they made this change. So I haven't, like, run sims to see at what point we're going to want this. Like, I think the previous viewpoint was that we won't want tier 20 until we're getting it at the same level as the equivalent Nighthold. In other words, if you've got Mythic Nighthold tier, that you won't want tier 20 unless it's like Mythic Tomb of Sargeras. That may now not be the case. So I'll have to see about that one. The 4+2 bonus, for me, I mean, this is another thing I said earlier on today when I was talking that I need to do in a separate video, I think. But it's worth obviously discussing here. There are various options. One of the options indeed was to have the 2 set from one tier and the 4 set from another. Realistically, you might think 2 set tier 19 and 4 set tier 20, but maybe that actually meant 4 set tier 19 and 2 set tier 20. Because this 4 set, I mean, what the hell is this? Judgment also increases the damage of Blade of Justice by 15%, blah, blah, blah. Well, Blade of Justice does a fair amount of damage. It's not an insignificant amount of damage. But so I suppose it's decent. It's all right. But it just doesn't look stunning to me. But yeah, the one option is the 2-piece plus 4-piece plus Liadrin's Fury Unleashed and Chain of Thrain. And that could still be a sensible way to go. In my particular case, I have got a 925 non-tier chest with decent stats, haste and versatility, with a socket. 925. Yes, I've been lucky. But the tier 19 chest is 905. So there's no way that I'm going to get the tier 9 chest to beat that. And even the heroic tier 20 would be 915. So even that would be a downgrade. So for me, I'm not going for 2+4 set. There's no point, because that would be a DPS loss. Plus it would mean not using the legendary cloak. Now, the way the sims seem to be working out at the moment, I know I'm keep putting off that trinket question. Sorry about that. I'll come to everything at some point. Sol Sacra very kindly produced some sims of legendary combos. Now, this was done or posted last Monday. Now, I have to warn here, obviously the Scarlet chest has been nerfed, and I can't remember exactly when it was nerfed. I think it was fairly recently. But so I don't know whether this reflects that or not, but it doesn't really matter. This is for single target. And what you can basically see here is, so sort of at the top you'd say cloak plus ring, like Liadrin. When I say ring, I mean Liadrin's. I don't mean the new Divine Purpose ring. So cloak plus ring, or it could be belt plus ring, or it could be cloak plus belt. Now you can see all of these are actually really close together. These two especially, there's nothing between these two. 300 DPS, when you're talking about 1,000,000 DPS, that's nothing. But the other thing to note about these sims is it's done with Tomb of Sargeras gear. So that means 4-piece tier 20. And in fact, I think the actual exact set of gear, I think that it uses... I got this off the Ret Discord, and I think this is what Sol Sacra was using. Where the bloody hell have I put it? Oh, here we go. I think is this. So that would be, for the tier set, the shoulders, breastplate, gauntlets, and legs. But it's effectively, these sims are not... So it doesn't necessarily mean that Cloak and Liadrin's technically gives you better results as soon as the patch goes live, because these sims were done with this gear set and none of us have this gear set. And none of us are likely to get this gear set for a while. So this is why you always have to sim yourself. But I think it is fair to say that the Legendary Cloak, the Legendary Belt, and Liadrin's Fury, use whichever two of those you prefer. The only thing I would add to that is, if it's a fight where you don't think you're going to get the full use out of Crusade, maybe don't use Liadrin's and the Belt, because they obviously only... Like for me, for example, I may well start using Liadrin's Fury Unleashed again rather than the Cloak. Two reasons for that. One is I have all 3 Wrath of the Ashbringer relics, so my Crusade lasts for 37.5 seconds. So I'm going to get even more holy power out of Liadrin's Fury. And now that I've just recently got a 920 holy relic with the Wrath of the Ashbringer, that looks set to continue for a little while. Obviously, it is perfectly possible that I may end up upgrading the other holy relic from Tomb of Sargeras, because obviously it's only worth so much item level. But we get the Fire Wrath of the Ashbringer relic from the second boss in Tomb of Sargeras as well. Oh, great thing. So you have to sim yourself at the end of the day with it. But yes, I may well start to... In fact, I was actually thinking already, as soon as we found out that the patch is coming out a week before Tomb of Sargeras, so next week we're going to be farming like Nighthold again, I might actually use Liadrin's Fury and Chain of Thrain on most of the fights, not all of them, just for the hell of it, and not use the Cloak. Because the Cloak brings issues of its own. Like, the Belt is easy. The Belt, you know, you don't have to do anything for the Belt. You don't modify your playstyle at all. You just have to make sure that you're maximising your DPS during Crusade. With Liadrin's Fury Unleashed, I haven't used it for a while, but it was my first Legendary, so I did use it for a long time. And what I found with that is, the way to use that is basically just to spend as soon as you can. You know, none of this build to 5 rubbish. As soon as you can spend. That reduces your chance of wasting any holy power from it. But there are some fights where I don't get to use my full 37.5 seconds. Like, Star Augur is a classic example. Gul'dan, you can, because sometimes when you've got wings up, it, you know, like in phase 1, I might get chucked out for Bonds of Fel. And, you know, phase 2, there's one particular use of Crusade, and I can't really help it, where I cannot get all of it out. It's my third use in the fight. I cannot be DPSing for the whole duration, and it really makes no difference when I try to use it. There is no period of 37.5 seconds when it's available when I can use it. Salami and beer or nuts and beer? Nuts and beer. Nuts go with beer. So what pub do you go to? Sorry. I've just brushed my teeth. Brushed my teeth and I'm having lemonade. Ugh. Taste will go away in a minute. Right, so let's have a look. Haste feels a lot slow before. I don't think they've nerfed haste. I'd have to look that up now that you're saying that. I haven't noticed that on the PTR, but I haven't done as much PTR as I would like to do. Usually I've been spending a little bit of time on Saturday mornings doing a bit of PTR. Although not this morning, because I've been having to do the Essentials guide, like the Ret guide for 7.2.5, which I'm having to bring out a week earlier than I'd planned. So it's like all panic stations, all hands on deck. I've started narrating that this morning. I mean, I had it sort of planned, but I did think I was going to get an extra week. Hiya. So anyway, trinkets. I was having a little look at trinkets. Now, I had a bit of difficulty in simming them, or simming them all. I've not been able, for some reason, I don't know why, to get a code for Spectral Betrayal at the item level I wanted. I don't know why that would be. But I did sim a few of them. So Cradle is... I'll just explain what these ones are. Now, what people who have run a lot of sims, and there are people, if you're on the Paladin Discord, you will see these. The people that have run them swear blind that the ones to go for are Spectre of Betrayal and Vial of Convulsive Shadows. And the way you would... The Spectre of Betrayal, for those who don't know, is one where you use it. It's got 45-second cooldown, and like an elemental type thing spawns, and it does a load of damage for 3 seconds. It's a bit like, imagine Draft of Souls, except instead of you doing the damage, this ad thing does the damage. I'm trying to think. Is it AoE damage? I can't even remember. Completely forgotten. I hadn't used it for 2 weeks. But anyway, it does its damage over like 3 seconds. Then it just sits there doing nothing. But that's fine. It'll last for 1 minute. And this is where the 45 seconds thing come in. Because what happens is, when that 5 seconds comes on, it's off cooldown again. You press it again and it spawns another elemental. But because you've still got the other elemental from before, because that lasts a minute, so it's still up for 15 seconds, both of them do that damage. So you have this cycle, as long as you can use it on cooldown or very shortly after cooldown, like a few seconds later, you end up with 2 of these elemental things doing the damage. So if you have to delay it for any reason more than 15 seconds, then you're going to lose that first one, so you lose a load of damage. Or, because they don't move, they stay where they are. If the boss ends up being moved, then it'll do its damage, but to nothing. There'll be nothing there. So, from a practical point of view, if the boss is going to be moved, or you cannot be at the boss every 15 seconds, for example, mechanics like Bonds of Fel or something that throws you out, and you can't get back within it doesn't have to be exactly 45 seconds, but it needs to be a few seconds after that, then it might be impractical to use it. But in terms of pure damage, those are the 2. And the way you're supposed to use them is you're supposed to use Spectre straight away, and then Vial of Convulsive Shadows once you've built up your stacks on your Crusade. This is at the start of the fight. After that, of course, you want to sort of use them on cooldown. But again, if Crusade's about to come off cooldown, when Vial's available, you just sort of hold on to it for a little bit. Try and use that on your main stacks. Hi, Gamer. I am really... The thing is, though, before I talk about these other trinkets that I've been looking at, I'm minded of 2 things. First of all, Blizzard are in the habit of keeping a trinket as it is, like through the last few weeks of a PTR, and then nerfing it on the release day. And my issue with the Vial of Convulsive Shadows is I don't understand how it can possibly be a good thing to use in a raid. Not because like at the moment, I'm perfectly happy to believe that the numbers say that it's a really good trinket. But the way it works is it has a certain cooldown. But what it does is it does a certain amount of damage, and then it puts a dot as well that lasts for 20 seconds. If the target dies while that dot's still up, in other words, within 20 seconds, then the cooldown is reduced from, like, I think it's a minute to 15 seconds. Or it's a massive reduction in the cooldown anyway. I've now forgotten the numbers, bloody hell. But it's a massive reduction in the cooldown. So this lends itself really well to solo and stuff. Or even Mythic Plus with, like, trash mobs. Because, you know, you can use it on a mob. You're not going to take 20 seconds to kill most things. And then, you know, it's almost up again for the next mob and so on. So you can use that quite a lot. So that would make it very powerful. So the fact that it would also be powerful on a boss where it's certainly not going to die in 20 seconds doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because that implies then it'd be too powerful in the other situation. So I'm a little concerned. So I certainly don't want to say to people, oh, like at the moment, as I say, we're being advised to get Spectre of Betrayal, which drops off Kill Jaden. So, you know, it's going to be a desirable one for a lot of people because it's going to be BIS for everyone that can use it probably. And Vial of Convulsive Shadows, I don't know. But the other thing, I was running some sims And I'd like to run more of these. But because another thing is like Cinders. Cinders is the one you can get off the first boss. So this should be a relatively accessible trinket for a lot of people. Hang on. I'll put the patch notes back up. I have talked about the changes. But if I put the patch notes up for you, then you can see those. So yeah, trinkets. Cinders, it's what drops off the first boss, so it's relatively accessible for everyone. Everyone's going to kill the first boss in the first week, if you're at all interested in raiding. Whether that just be on normal, whether it be on normal and heroic, whatever it is. But it's the one that does a certain amount of fire damage every now and then. But the crit of it increases for 10% for every other person with the same trinket within 10 yards of you. So if you've got a whole host of melee that are all using that trinket, then it becomes very good. But what a lot of people are saying, and this isn't just for Rets, this is for everyone that can use it, you probably need quite a few people, 4 or 5 people, to have it and be in the same place to make it worthwhile. Well, the sims I was doing was showing, because I had with these paired with the Cradle, which is the one where you get your stacking strength thing. So against Vial, Moonglaves and Cinders, it was the most damaging. And the sim won't assume that other people have it. The sim will be assuming that you're the only one in the raid that's got it. So it looks decent to me. You know, the Cinders looks decent. Obviously, it depends on item level. Like for all these, I've put it as 915, which is what it would be for heroic. You know, so, but again, you'd have to sort of sim it for yourself, wouldn't you? Moonglaves, obviously, for single target on a boss isn't going to be any good at all. But for Mythic Plus, I would think not so much easy Mythic Plus. I would think for Mythic Plus, like more difficult ones. The problem with easy ones is you come up to a group of mobs and then the tank grabs them and then they bugger off. So they're always moving. Moonglaves does its AoE and in one place. It's like Consecration. And it does a burst at the end of the 8 seconds. So if the mobs are not going to be stacked together in one place for at least 8 seconds or 9 seconds, let's say, then there's no point in using it. It's not going to do enough damage. Whereas in a tough situation where you are going to have a load of mobs and they are going to be up for 9 seconds, then that could be a good one. Divine Hammer is not. No, I would say again, obviously I'm going to have to re-go over some things as people come in. The Divine Hammer nerf only stops us using it on single target. It's still a DPS increase on 2 target cleave, 3 target cleave, AoE, whatever. Yeah, well, this is the thing about the stats. Again, you always have to sim yourself. But there is a scenario whereby having 30% haste and mastery, ironically, could potentially be a really good thing to get. Doesn't necessarily mean, oh, let's just go full haste mastery. Because up until, like, haste has breakpoints. There's certain points at which, you know, it's really high because you get an extra thing out of it. But, I mean, for example, this trinket, the Vial of Convulsive Shadows, you will do more damage with that with a higher haste because it does it ticks quicker, basically. So yeah, 30. I think it's 30 between 30 and 31% or something like that is a good amount of haste to have with this, because we can create a situation like, hold on, I'm gonna have to get rid of the patch notes to show you. Blimey. I have a little thing at the bottom which has all these images, but I can't fit them all into one like window, and I can't resize the window. Right, so tier 20 set bonus. So Blade of Justice generates 1 additional holy power. That means Blade of Justice generates 3 holy power. 3 holy power is enough for a spender, Templar's Verdict or Divine Storm. Now, we also have, we're on single targets anyway, likely to be using Blade of Wrath. Blade of Wrath means we get a chance to have the cooldown reset on it. So you're going to be able to hit Blade of Justice more often with that. So you could create a situation where you're basically hitting Blade of Justice, Templar's Verdict, maybe Blade of Justice again, Templar's Verdict, stuff like that. And it's much more likely with a higher haste as well to be able to get more of these Blade of Justice in. Remember, Blade of Justice is a spender on its own. it's worth a whole spender with 2-piece tier 20. And then you look at this thing as well. I mean, if you're going to be using a lot of Blade of Justice, well, at this point, you know, maybe... I mean, this only works once, obviously, Judge... because that is the other thing, of course. Higher haste means you can spam Judgment more often as well. And with higher Mastery, Judgment becomes more powerful. Because Mastery doesn't just buff the damage of our spenders with the Judgment debuffs on it. It actually buffs the damage of Judgment itself. So you've got several things all sort of working together. So having high haste and Mastery is quite useful. However, the sims that Sol Sakura was doing, because when I asked what stats that was with, he showed me the profile, and that had about 21-22% haste and about 30% mastery or something like that. So again, that's why it's important to sim stuff for yourself. But yeah, with 2 set tier 20, Blade of Justice is worth a whole spender on its own. And that's another thing worth saying at this point as well. Because of that, because we are not likely to use as many Crusader strikes, there will be no point in taking Fires of Justice. When we've got tier 20, you might as well take Zeal, because it does more damage. All the benefit of Fires of Justice is you get to use Crusader Strike more often. If you're not going to need to use it as much, because you're going to use more Blade of Justice, and Blade of Justice is a spender in its own, doesn't need Crusader Strike to buff to bung it up, then that's what we're going to do. Worst and best raid moment? I don't know. Sometimes the worst and the best raid moments at the same time. So replace Divine Hammer for tier 20 with Blade of Wrath, yeah. Basically. The changes I like to be like at the moment, what we generally use is Divine Hammer and Fires of Justice. What we're likely to use, not necessarily as soon as the patch comes out, I hasten to add, but when we've got this 2 set, is Zeal and Blade of Wrath. Although we will switch to Blade of Wrath when the patch comes out for single target. You know, because the Divine Hammer, that's a nerf. That's nothing to do with tier 20 set bonuses. Hang on, hold on. I'm just checking that I haven't missed anything. The legendary chest in terms of sim, well, this is why I'm not 100% now, because it was nerfed quite recently. The situation was that it still works in terms of its stacks. Like every 2 seconds, it stacks up, and each stack is worth 10% to your next Divine Storm, and it stacks up to 30 times. So it takes a full minute to get all the stacks, but you don't need all the stacks for it to do a fair amount of damage. That basically meant on a fight that's mostly single targets using Templar's Verdict, but then like Beast Lord type fight, so then ads come in, like Eyes on Gul'dan, stuff like that. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, it was a full minute before the next lot come in. You'd have a Divine Storm that's going to do 300% extra damage ready to go. That's a massive amount. Because in those situations, well, usually those sort of ads die in a couple of seconds, don't they? Because you've got so many, you've got like Demon Hunters and Fury Warriors and people that can do a crap load of burst AoE damage, and you know, Ret Paladins in general. Like at the moment, we're okay at burst AoE damage. We're sort of okay, not the best. That was going to really tip us over. But the thing was as well with it is, as it was also looking quite good for single target. Under certain conditions, it might even be the one you'd want to use for single target, even if you had access to all the other legendaries, without even stacking up for a minute. You don't even have to stack it up for a minute. So that was obviously a non-starter. The chest is clearly designed for AoE. So they've nerfed it. So now instead of doing 10% damage per stack, it's like 6%. But I am certain it would still be good for AoE. I'm quite sure it's still the sort of thing we're going to use for, like, especially Mythic Plus on Fortified, say, where with especially trash heavy fights, dungeons like Blackrook Hold and stuff like that. But you're not going to use it for single target. I don't think realistically you would use it for raid bosses, because I don't really think any raid bosses have got a lot of AoE in them. So yeah, but so for raids, it's probably not going to be used, but for dungeons, yeah, or trash even. If you're into changing your legendaries for trash, then absolutely. So I think that's where we are with the legendary chest. But as I say, if I was to put up there were unlisted ret changes, but they have now been listed. Blizzard updated their patch notes today, so they're there now. So they are all there. So that's all the changes. What they missed off was the fact that our Divine Hammer has been nerfed, but that every other damage ability has been buffed. Hang on, let's get rid of that again. Hold on. Well, I might as well get rid of the Trinkets one now. What was I looking at? So yeah, I mean, on this one, as I say, Solshaku did this last Monday, and I can't remember whether that was before or after the nerf. But you can see here that this, you know, cloak plus the chest. This is the first instance where we see the chest. It's not miles behind the top one even. I mean, you can look at these; they're really close. If you were to think about this, I mean, what is that percentage-wise? That's not much more than a 1%. Is it even? Hold on. What's the difference between that and that? 25. Out of 1,000. That's like 2.5% difference. 2.5% difference is significant if you play well. So, like, if you had access to all of them, obviously you wouldn't use the chest for single target. But what it's suggesting is, if you use it properly, it's not bad, even on single target. And if you've got a fight where it is mostly single target, but there are times when those ads are coming in, maybe. It depends how frequently and how many. It could be a risky one to use for a boss fight, but for an AOE fight, the chest has got to be amazing. It absolutely must be, because if it's that good for like single target, then I think this must be the nerfed one. Then for AoE it's got to be stunning. And the other thing is as well, let's say they'd nerfed it too much to the point where in AoE it was useless, they would buff it back up, because they're not going to bring out a new legendary that no one wants. Yeah, I mean, some of these legendaries are not realistic anyway. Like the Ash, I've got the Ashes to Dust now. There's no situation in which I use it because it occupies an important tier slot for me. I'm not going to be getting rid of... I mean, it's not worth me getting rid of my tier shoulders because there's nothing to replace it with. Like, one tier slot is the cloak. Well, I have the legendary cloak. Another tier slot is the chest. I have a 925 chest. So I'm not taking that off. But yeah, the three legendaries to get are the cloak, Liadrin's Fury Unleashed, and the belt. If you've got those three, then for raid bosses at any rate, you're going to be using two of those three in most situations. But again, I'll just have to caution that this is with Tomb of Sargeras gear. I can't remember what item level, but Tomb of Sargeras gear with, I'm pretty sure it was about 21-ish% haste, 21, 22% haste, and about 30 to 31% mastery. So some legendaries in reality might go up or down if you had a different range of stats, because that's how it works. Obviously, especially with the tier 20, and during Crusade, where you're getting that high haste buff, you're going to use a lot of spenders. A lot, you know, things like Blade of Wrath, combine Blade of Wrath with high haste from Crusade and tier 20 2 set. you're going to be basically spamming Blade of Justice, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice, Templar's Verdict a lot of the time. So you're going to be using a lot of spenders. So that means mastery goes up in value. Hi, Saljin. Right, okay. So, anyone else got anything? The Thete Legend, the boots. I only really use the boots. Well, I use the boots for soloing. Just to move around a little bit more quickly. But every time sometimes I think I should use them in Mythic Plus because I'm always sick of lagging behind everyone else. But every time I do, we end up struggling on damage, so I have to switch to my damage legendaries instead. Like I did it yesterday. Used them to try and keep up, but then we just ended up we died to a boss. Embarrassing. And we were boosting alts, freshly dinged alts, I have to say. But even so. So I had to put my damage legendaries on. But yeah, for soloing, I quite like using the boots, plus I suppose some people use Cephas, but I tend to quite like using the Kill Jaden's Burning Wish as well. But Cephas would be a good one as well. I mean, that's sometimes a good one for Mythic Plus. As you're approaching something, put Hand of Hindrance on it. Or does Hand of Hindrance work? Can't remember. I don't use it enough. It should work, shouldn't it, Hand of Hindrance? Or with Cephas. I know obviously interrupting and stunning it does. And then get yourself a nice little movement boost there. I suppose even the crafted legendary would be quite good in Mythic Plus at times. Again, just for the point of view of getting around. But that's just on dungeons where it's quite easy for you. You know you're going to 3-chest it. And you're going through the trash really quickly and everyone keeps running off ahead of you. Like when it's a tougher ask. Do I think Tomb will be as hard on World First Curse as Nighthild was? It should be. It better be. It would be disappointing if it were not. Kill Jaden is reputed to be on all difficulties significantly more difficult than Gul'dan. The existing Distilled Titanesses will not be upgraded. They have a new thing. Completely new. So any Distilled Titanesses you have, if you already have all your legendaries at 940, then any other ones you have are useless. It's going to be a completely different item from the same NPC, but a different item. They have actually improved the quest. There's going to be 2 improvements to it. One, like before, you couldn't collect any of the things, like the bits that you needed for it, unless you had the quest, which meant, let's say you got the last one you needed for the quest on a boss in Nighthild, but you were carrying on, you killed other bosses, you wouldn't be able to get any more of the items from those other bosses, but when you went back, it's like you couldn't just kill those same other bosses on another difficulty and get the item either, because it recorded you as having killed those bosses. So that was really inefficient. Also, it meant if people opened their cache, where you also got a load of them, but didn't have the quest, then you didn't get them and you wasted it. So they're changing it so you get the items regardless of whether you've got the quest or not, which is better. And the other thing is, because this is probably why people do still have some Distilled Titan Essence that they don't need, is when the game realises that you no longer have any 940 or lower legendaries, you stop getting offered the quest. So as soon as you've upgraded your last legendary to 970, and remember that new legendaries you get will automatically be 970, then you'd no longer offered the quest. So that helps there as well. So you won't actually be able to get spare ones. Because they're no use to you. And the same will happen with the next one as well. Whenever they decide to increase them again, whatever, 7.3.5 perhaps, I don't know. Because I do wonder if they are going to do that with that sort of model, that maybe 7.3 brings with it Argus itself and a load of stuff, but not the raid, and then the raid comes in 7.3.5. That would seem to make sense in terms of what they're doing. Worth hoarding emissary caches for the new legendaries? I don't know. The thing is, Blizzard said before, when this was a thing, no, there's no benefit in hoarding it, because, you know, the loot is supposedly determined at the point at which you get the cache, not when you open it, blah, 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 blah. But there were reports of people who did hoard it anyway last time, and they did get new legendaries. Not all of them, of course, but some people did. So I don't know. What I would say is now that the patch is only like a few days away, really. What, 4 days away, 3 days away, depending on whether you're in North America or Europe. There's no harm in hoarding them, is there? You might as well. What harm is there in doing that? So go for it. There's like 4 days left. To hell with it. Save them. I probably will. Just on the off chance that maybe it does give you a new legendary. Will the new legendary ring be bis now? No. It will be good. It will be better, but it won't be bis. At least not at the moment. Again, like, I can't say anything definite because anything is subject to change. If Blizzard decide that they want to make it bis, then it will be bis. However, hang on, let's put it up again. Where have they gone? Here we go. So, High Lord. So we can see here that, say, Cloak and High Lord is not very far behind these three here. So if, let's say, you wanted to use the ring because you like Divine Purpose, you're not going to do yourself any harm by using it. And the ring, the new ring, Seal of the High Lord, whatever it's called, does lend itself quite well with the cloak, because it's going to allow you to keep the cloak buff running for longer in general. 30% haste with Ring of the High Lord, so you get... What do you mean? What's with the 30% haste with with the High Lord one? Thing is, though, Nico, Blizzard said it wouldn't work before, and it did, or reportedly did. The way I look at it from the emissary caches, or indeed anything, like, it doesn't matter, it's emissary caches or nether shards or anything that you can turn in and have a chance of getting a legendary. Blizzard say there's no point in hoarding because it's not actually going to give you a new legendary if it's stuff that you had before the patch. But the reality is, are you desperate in the next 4 days to be turning this stuff in? And if the answer is no, then you might as well do it after the patch. And if there was no chance, then it doesn't really matter, you haven't lost anything. Oh, well, yeah, yes, potentially. But the problem is you're going to find a difficult time having 30% haste. And that's what I mean. Quite a lot of these things, trinkets and legendaries, are conditional. And that's why it's really important to sim yourself. If you manage to get 30% haste without being silly and giving yourself crap gear as a result of it, there's no point in getting yourself 30% haste at the exclusion of everything else. You always have to go for what are the best stats for you at the time. But if you can sneak that... I'm not sure it's exactly 30%. I think it's like between 30 and 31% haste. Then it possibly could be, yes. You can see, I mean, this is with, I think, about 21% haste. And it's marginally behind here. I mean, what is the difference here between the top one and the bottom one? Less than 0.5%. That's, oh, is it 31.25? Well, there you go then. It's less than 0.5% behind this. And remember, this is all assuming you play perfectly on a patchwork boss where you stand stock still and you play perfectly. And there's next to no difference. So, and that's with 21% haste. Obviously, with a higher percentage haste, this combination would be better. So it could easily, yes, be bis if you have a lot of haste. But that's more one for probably thinking about it in a month's time or something, because there's a couple of things. As I say, these sims are based on Tomb of Sargeras gear, which none of us have right now. The legendaries, well, we don't even have that new legendary now. Some people may be lucky and get it on the first day of the patch. Most won't. Most of us may not have it in 2 months' time, if we're honest. Unless Blizzard surreptitiously increase the chance for legendaries to drop, which they might. I especially for re-rollers and stuff like that, I don't at the moment see the point when so many people have basically all the legendaries anyway. There isn't really that much point in having it take ages and ages to get new legendaries. I don't think there is anyway. But yeah, and the other thing is, well, as you transition from your Nighthold gear to your Timur Salgueros gear, you will probably find that your haste jumps up and down like a jack-in-a-box. But yeah, Jared, about completing the quest and turn them in on reset day, I would as well. Any caches I get, any nether shard, anything that, any war supplies I have, I'm going to just hold on to them until patch day myself. Because why not? I don't need them in the next 4 days. But yeah, this is where you have to be a little bit careful with this sims when it's a general sim like this, because it's not. This isn't for any of us. This doesn't apply to any single one of us. So you sort of have to do it for yourself. And then you might get some slightly different results, but there's not going to be a lot in it with that with those four. Nether shards won't drop new leggies or TOS gear. I believe that they won't drop the Timur Salgueros gear. I believe that because you would have to manually add it to the loot table. So I believe that. But saying that it can't drop the new legendaries, I'm not so sure about that, because that depends on how they code for it giving us legendaries in the first place. There is a chance. Because I'm not saying they're lying about it, because why would they? It doesn't make any sense to lie. But they have said things about legendaries before and been wrong, because the stuff hasn't ended up working as they intended. So we don't know. It may well be that it cannot possibly drop a new legendaries, but it may not. And again, it's one of those things, if you don't desperately need to turn stuff in the next few days, then what harm is there just by delaying it, just in case? You might even be able to get more than 9 seals for the first week. Obviously, we can save up, in theory, 6 seals by that reset. I suppose you'd have already had to have started. I've spent all mine this week. So, and I don't think there's any more sources coming. But let's say next week, yes, I could get my first 3 and not spend them in Nighthold, which I probably won't do. But let's say you had your 6, you could spend them and then go and get the other 3. But you'd also have it from other sources as well, like your mission, the Nighthold mission, for example. That also rewards a seal, doesn't it? So you might actually be able to sneak more out, depending on how your missions line up. And also, I can't remember when the next time walking comes out, because time walking also, if you get the do 5 time walking with the, excuse me, the Dalaran quest, that always gives you a seal as well, doesn't it? But I forget when the next one's out. But yeah, I would certainly think that I would certainly save them up. As I say, I spent mine this week, I have to say, so I'm not going to have that many. But I am going to save them up at this point now. So if Time Walk's coming next week, then if it's next week, that's a bit awkward, because it doesn't help you for Timur Salgueros, does it? I suppose it helps me, because I could get next week's, which is 3, and then I could get that, which would be 4. And then the mission, if I'm trying to think when I last done the mission, whether it was this week, but I would have 1 from the mission as well. That'd be 5 and 8. So I'd have 8 altogether for the first reset, by the looks of it. I could have had 9. I'm not 100% sure which ones I might use them on, because I want to sim stuff to see how soon I'd want the tick. Because usually you sim tier bosses and any boss that drops a decent trinket, and quite a lot of the bosses that drop decent trinkets also happen to drop tier as well. So you actually only need to do so many bosses. If you know, yeah, well the max is 6. Oh, resources, how many gold do you have? No, it's gone to 2 gold. No, it's nothing to do with gold. You can only buy 3 a week. What was I thinking? I was saying something I've completely forgotten. Never mind. Probably wasn't that important. Oh yeah, but I don't actually know if I want to roll on the tier bosses to begin with anyway. I like focus on trinkets. Or even relics. Because the at the same time I'm not sure, because I'm not likely to get tier from any source other than rolling, because it's not as great for us as it is some other classes. I suppose the 2 set is decent. But it's worth making sure, in my case, is the 2 set tier 20 better than the 4 set tier 19? Because if not, I have to be very careful about doing that. Because I cannot go for 4 set plus 2 set. Unless it's like a Titan Forged tier piece chest, which is very unlikely. Or unless the Sims tell me it's still worth losing like 10 item levels and a socket. And that would mean not using the legendary cloak. But, you know, I'd be okay using Liadrins in the belt. I'd be fine with that. Maybe I should just practice going on that assumption for next week. Use the ring in the belt. Maybe try and get myself the tier 19 cloak. No point in getting the tier 19 chest, really, because that'd be 20 item levels behind, and with less useful stats. The other thing, just while we've got a bit of a pause, someone produced on the Paladin Discord. Again, we have to understand that this is with a particular gear set. Can you mix tier 9 and 20? Yes, you can. Whether it's sensible to do so depends on exactly what gear you've got. That'll be quite personal, but you can do it. Broken short, what, the war supplies? Yeah. It's sensible to do it, even if we don't get any benefit out of it. We're not losing anything, because it's not like we're saving these things up for weeks. We're saving it for a few days, and I've done all my raiding anyway for this week, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, you can see here. This is on the Paladin Discord in the Ret FAQ. Someone did. And it tells you for relics roughly what the item level equivalent is. So the idea, if you want to compare your relic with one that's got for the trait, is add this number to the relevant relic and to its item level, and then you can compare the two. But again, you have to remember this is done with a standard gear set, which is not necessarily the same as your gear set, and it's also done with you've got to assume that it says Avenging Wrath here. I assume that means Crusade. No one uses Avenging Wrath. We've also got to assume that you're going to get full use out of Crusade. If ever there's going to be a fight where you don't get full use out of it for whatever reason, then there'll be no value in it. And obviously the Divine Storm one assumes you've got 2 targets at least. Blizzard have certainly attempted to prevent us hoarding things for a patch to get some benefit. Absolutely agree with that. And for the most part have succeeded. But not everything that they have done has worked. Sometimes they've done a thing and it's cocked up. And some people, as a result, have benefited. So, you know, as I say, what I'm saying is not, oh yes, save it up because you might get a new legendary. What I'm saying is, do you really desperately need it this week, in this next few days? I don't think anyone does. So what harm is there just delaying? Just on the small chance that something's cocked up and something doesn't end up working as they intend. Are there any new artifact items? Well, this is what I mean. Wrath of the Ashbringer is still, in theory, our BIS trait. And if you, again, like, so I'll go over it again. This is with a standard gear set. I'm not saying that the Wrath of the Ashbringer is worth 26 item levels and Righteous Blade 22, Deliver the Justice 15, and so on. What I am saying is that if you have that standard set of gear that is also listed in the Rets FAQ on Discord, that this is how it's working out. Now, what I notice is, so it's saying the Wrath of the Ashbringer relic is worth 26 item levels. Righteous Blade is worth 22, but that's only if you've got 2 targets. Otherwise, you're not even going to use Divine Storm, so that's worthless then. So you've got 26 Wrath of the Ashbringer. The next one down for single target is Blade of Justice, and that's worth 15 item levels. So the Wrath of the Ashbringer traits are still worth a lot. They are worth sacrificing item level for, and a significant amount as well. Now, in Tomb of Sargeras, we only have one Wrath of the Ashbringer trait available. It's the Fire Relic, and it drops off, I call it the second boss. The second boss in the raid journal. I don't know the topography. I don't know whether that's literally the second boss. Did they nerf Divine? They're not nerfing Divine. What? By DS, do you mean Divine Storm? They're not nerfing that. I think if you mean Divine Hammers, which they are nerfing, that is with the patch. It's not now. It's next week. So yeah, we will still want Wrath of the Ashbringer traits where we can get them, but we can only get it on the Fire Relic in Tomb of Sargeras. So for our Holy Relics, we either need to get that from either Titan Forge stuff from Nighthold, from the second boss in Nighthold, or by going to a dungeon that gives it. Blackrook Hold has a Holy Wrath of the Ashbringer relic, for example. Also, there's the occasional world quest that gives it as well. And although the base item level of... No, the base item level is not going up for world quests. But it might Titan Forge, but very unlikely. So, there's going to come a point, you would think, where we get a Holy Blade of Justice relic that's high enough. Because I think... I'm trying to think now. I'm pretty sure there is one in Tomb of Sargeras, but I now can't remember which boss. So maybe I'm misremembering. But if we get it at high enough item level, it will be worth taking it. But that's what I mean. You probably won't go far wrong if you use these item levels though, because the idea is, let's say you've got a Holy Relic, Wrath of the Ashbringer one, and you've got a Deliver the Justice one. So you add the item level of the actual relic you've got, and you add this number on. So let's say I get a 900 Wrath of the Ashbringer. So I say 900 plus 26 makes 926. Let's say I've got a 910 Deliver the Justice one. So I say 910 plus 15 makes 925. This one is still edging it very slightly. So that's the sort of way you use it. But again, this is for not out of gear. So when it's close like that, you might want to make a call as to which one you decide to go for. If it was that close, in my personal opinion, I'd probably just go for the highest item level. Especially if you do PvP, because there, of course, you want the item level. Or at least in multiples of 10, as I understand it. But I don't know very much about PvP. And obviously, any traits that are not shown here are basically worthless. I'm just trying to see. So we've got the Blade of Justice one. What's this? Yeah, PvE. Templar's Verdict, Crusader Strike, Judgment. So yeah, it hasn't got, for example, it hasn't got the Shield of Vengeance one on it, because that's, you can't guarantee that can be used for damage. Obviously not Blessing of Protection, because that's a load of rubbish. Oh, Or the Flash of Light one. How awful would that be? So anyway, that's Relics. Just thinking with the higher haste as well, if you did get yourself quite a lot of haste. Hold on, let's get rid of the legendaries one. Then it could well be that the 4 set becomes worth a little bit more as well. Because if you can hit Judgment more often, then that means you can buff more Blades of Justice. Because there could be, because you know, you don't even need to think to yourself, use Judgment when the Judgment debuff wears off. You could actually, if you're getting it rapid enough, just use Judgment off cooldown, especially with a lot of Mastery. So if you do get to that like 30-31% haste and Mastery, if it were feasible, I don't know how feasible it is. It might not be for a while, but it could be in theory. This is why I always say keep, if you get any high item level items, just because they're not good now, keep them because you never know. But yeah, if we could get like 30 to a bit over 30% haste and Mastery, it changes a few things. Do I use Justicar's Vengeance? I sort of do. It's really not. You can't think of it in terms of damage though. For damage purposes, it's not anything to be used. It's a heal. Think of it as a heal. The advantage of that over Word of Glory is that it's more spammable. Yes, you have to build up to 5 holy power, but Word of Glory, you get to, it's going to cost you, okay, 6 holy power to spam it twice, but then it's on cooldown for quite a long time. Also, you have the advantage, especially in Mythic Plus, of stunning a mob and getting more healing from it. Of course, the other thing in dungeons, if you use Word of Glory, then you can also use that to heal other people as well. But it has such a hell of a cooldown on it that it's only used in an emergency. But if you're in a situation where people are constantly going low on health, like for example with the exploding, the affix for this week, if it's not going to actually save people, there's no point in it. But generally speaking, I don't advise it for progress in raids or even tough Mythic Pluses. But I've been using it at the moment because Eye for an Eye is only any use for physical damage. There hasn't been a lot of physical damage in Nighthold. And also Word of Glory, as I say, occasionally I've taken it and then found that realistically I'm not going to use it. So I just take it on an off chance. Yes, you do have to get 5 holy power. That will be a bit easier in tier 20, as I say, with higher haste, Blade of Justice creating 3 holy power, blah, 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 blah. Could be a bit easier to get that. But yeah, there's no way you would think of this as being beneficial for damage, because we have traits that buff our Templar's Verdict, and we don't have traits that buff our Justicar's Vengeance. And also, if you're using the Legendary Cloak, then from a DPS point of view, it's a definite non-starter, because it does not reapply the buff for that, or even benefit from it. So, yeah. But at the moment, I do have it talented, just because it's the only one that I occasionally use, as opposed to the other two, which I found that I was never using. Eye for an Eye I was using in like Emerald Nightmare. There were times in Emerald Nightmare where that was useful. And I even used it in Trial of Valor. I can't specifically say. Like on the Valajar, I suppose, on Odin. And Guam when he does his knockback thing. But Nighthold, the only time I was finding it of any use at all was on Scorpion. I can't think of any other instance when it was useful. Yes, soloing it is good because it allows you to take on elites very easily. Like you can do the elites on the Broken Shore, piece of piss. because you can just keep healing yourself if you need to. I mean, you may not, with good enough gear, you may not even need to heal yourself on them. But it does allow you to keep yourself topped up. Even if it's on the ones that are immune to stuns, even if you don't get the stun off, it's still good for healing you up. So it's a very, very good solo talent, definitely. But it just has to be seen as a heal and not as something that heals whilst also doing good damage. It's a DPS loss to use it for damage purposes. So yeah, you do have to just think of it as a heal. I probably have, but I'll see anyway. What's the latest on the new legendary ring? Yeah, it sort of is worth it. It's not like, oh, this is Bish, you definitely want this, go and get it. But it is good enough to use if you want to. So where we can see Sol Sacra's sims that he did, last Monday are here, and we can see the first instance of the new legendary ring is with the cloak here. It's less than 0.5% behind this, which is the cloak and Liadrin's ring. Hang on. You see 19%. 19%. What have I missed? What do you mean, Nico? 19%. Divine Hammer. Set. What? I don't know. You're going to have to speak in sentences. I really don't know what you're saying. I'm getting 19% DH, which could be Divine Hammers, or because, like, that doesn't make any sense with 19%. So you could be talking about a Demon Hunter as well, and a set bonus. I don't know what you mean. But yeah, so in terms of the legend, let's say you got the new legendary ring. If you want to use it, you can use it. But it's not a must-have. So if you don't want, equally, if you don't want to use it because you don't like even more procs, then don't use it. You should track it though. If you're going to use it, make sure that you are tracking your divine purpose procs. And also, people keep asking this as well. It's not a separate it's giving you divine purpose. So it's not a different spell ID, the procs or anything like that. It's just divine purpose. I mean, I would probably use it for soloing and even like Mythic Plus, probably. Because why not? The problem with Mythic Plus is you don't always use Crusade off cooldown. So using, say, Legendary Belt or something like that is not always great. Or Liadrin's Fury Unleashed. Whereas something like this is just always useful. Like the Cloak, really. Except the Cloak as well, if you're going to mince through things quickly, again, may or may not be useful. Because you've got to put some work into the Cloak. You don't have to put very much in to the new Legendary Ring, other than tracking your Divine Purpose procs. To make sure you don't let it fade away. Not that it's likely to. Does it give Crusader stacks? It actually does. I tested that out. It does. I know what you mean, because someone did ask this and I tested it out. Like, because technically it's free. But if you use if you use Divine Purpose, say, on a proc on a Templar's Verdict, it will give you 3 stacks. So yes, it does. And it will be particularly useful, yes, with the Cloak, because it will allow you to keep the buff rolling for a little bit longer. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are going to help the Legendary Cloak to be a better. The 2 set tier 20, which means that Blade of Justice generates 3 holy power. That's going to help at certain times. If you've got the Legendary Ring with Divine Purpose procs, that's going to help as well. If you are going to be able to get yourself a decent amount of haste, that inevitably helps too. Legendary Ring always benefits from a high amount of haste. And if you can have a high amount of haste and therefore increase the duration the effective uptime of your buff, that also naturally increases the value of mastery. So that's why I say, although I'm not going to say go haste and mastery in tier 20, I think you could without going wrong. So ring, so I'm assuming you mean the new legendary ring plus new tier. Haste would lose its value. Not necessarily with a 2 set. No, not really. Because the thing, hold on, let me put it up. I mean, with the ring it will. Divine, but the thing is, with more haste, you get more divine purpose procs. So you have to think of it in those terms. And where's the tier 20 gone? There we go. The other thing is, so Blade of Justice generates 1 additional hold power. So Blade of Justice is worth a spender. You use Blade of Justice, you can spend. Okay, whether you do or not, obviously you still go on the basis of build to 5 first if you can, but you can spend. More haste means you can hit more of these. More of these means you can hit more spenders. This one as well. Judgment also increases the damage of Blade of Justice by 15%. Blade of Justice already does a lot of damage. Now, if you can use Judgment more often, then that means you can buff more Blades of Justice. And how do you just spam Judgment more often? You have more haste. So, in actual fact, haste is still going to be a very high value stat, even with those. Now, I'm not going to say, if you get your character as it is now, and sim it for stat values, and then you do the same thing with, like the Divine Purpose Ring and tier 20, the value of haste would definitely go up. It might go down a bit, I don't know, because it depends how much haste you've actually got. Because remember, haste has like these little points, but it will retain a high value. Most of our damage is during Crusade, but the way some of these things work, that it smooths it out. So the legendary ring, like the High Lord ring, smooths out your damage, so it increases the amount of damage outside of Crusade. Something like this 2 set, especially linked with the legendary cloak, again increases the amount of damage you do outside of Crusade. All of these things help to allow us to be able to do a decent amount of damage outside of Crusade as well. And that's where haste is very, very useful. Obviously, we will always do still a very high amount of damage during Crusade, and we will definitely want to maximize that damage. And yes, when you build up a few stacks, haste at that point has very little value. And if you've got heroism going at the same time, no value at all. But there's only one time when you're going to have heroism going as well. So all the other times, haste is still useful for you to be able to build up those stacks quickly. And at the same, because, you know, you're not getting 100% haste off Crusade, even on full stacks. So it is still a benefit to have haste. But yeah, haste is devalued during Crusade, yeah. But outside of it, it's when its value is very high. We would be able to do very, very interesting things if we are able to obtain, and I'm not saying this would be easy or even feasible, but if, for the sake of argument, we were able to obtain 30-ish% haste and master it, we would be able to do very, very interesting things. No, don't think about Justicars. Ah, well, actually, no, hold on. Did I test Justicars? I can't remember. I'm not going to say for certain that Justicars with a Divine Purpose procs give you 5. I didn't actually specifically test that. I should have done, shouldn't I? It may not. It may just be that using a Divine Purpose proc gives you 3, just as a baseline thing. It'd be worth testing that out. I should test this out after this. I also want to run a lot more things on the trinkets because, like I say, I was getting some trinket results that don't necessarily agree with my sims with some other people that I was looking at. What do you mean last time? You have 30% haste and 28% mastery. Versatility was 0. I don't know how you've managed that. Last time? What do you mean by last time? Oh, you were talking about this. The 4 set. Yeah, 15% increase. What, at the moment? You've got no versatility at the moment? Or is this sometime in the past? I don't know how it's... I can't remember exactly how much versatility I've got, but I think it's a reasonable amount. It's over 10%, I'm sure it is. On the damage, that is. All right. I mean, there was a period of time when I had very low to versatility. Certainly Emerald Nightmare was not easy to come by. Although I've never had a very high amount of mastery. My mastery has always tended to be round about 20%-ish. What's the general idea for gearing in tier 20 then? Well... Yeah, I mean, you have to be a bit careful. The answer to that, Elador, is always sim your stat weights. And I would advise as well, not just doing patchwork. I always advise patchwork and beast lord, for raiding, that is. Patchwork and beast lord. Sim your stat weights for those two things and sort of come to a general agreement about, you know, how to weight them yourself. But you go for whichever stat for you at that time is better. Like, use pawn for most. I mean, obviously that's not going to work for trinkets and relics, but for any item that's just got stats on it, that'll help you. But because it's one of these things, it's like, you know, let's say you're on 22% haste now. So what we can say is, right, what we really want to do is get 31% haste. But that doesn't mean to say that you take haste items wherever they come. And if you've got a slot that doesn't have haste in it at the moment, fill it with a haste slot, even if it's a bit lower item level. I'm not saying that. Because it might well be that haste isn't even your highest stat in terms of like priority. It's just that they'll get a point where it is because it sort of goes up and down a lot. But what we'd say in general is it would be nice if we ended up with a situation where we had fairly high haste and mastery. But that doesn't necessarily mean just focus on haste and mastery. You always have to, when you've got so many pieces for a slot, you have to equip whatever is best for you at that time. But keep the others. If you've got high item level pieces, don't throw them away just because you wouldn't use it now. Keep it and then keep reviewing things. Because it might well be that one piece isn't any good now, but when you get another couple of pieces elsewhere, then all of a sudden it is, just because of the way that it works. Do I like the transmog updated version of Tier 6? No, I don't. I think it's shocking. I think it's absolutely shocking. I'm usually really... I have only good things to say about the graphics team, usually. But the Paladin horse is a shocker. It's dreadful. Might be higher res than the one I use, but it's awful. And the Lightbringer, again, it might be higher res than the one that I sometimes transmog from TBC, but it's awful. It's bad. Use Simcraft a lot. Sim at the moment. Yeah, Convergence of Fates obviously is a tricky one because the 2 times to use Convergence of Fates. 1, if it will allow you to get an extra Crusade out of it. How do you know that? In order to know that, you need to know what the fight length is and when you can use it. Those are all unknowns. You're gambling for that situation. So the other time to use it is if it will allow you to use Crusade at a more convenient time. So there are some fights where that's the case. Like Star Augur, the way on Star Augur, if I didn't have Convergence of Fates, then my Crusade in the Fell phase would not, I'd hardly get any use out of it at all. Because I'd have to run out. Now, I still don't get full use out of it using Convergence, but it does allow me to use it a little bit earlier at a more convenient time. Second thing with Mythic Gul'dan, like, if I didn't, like, when we killed it for the first time, I actually didn't use Convergence of Fates. I was using it through most of Progress and then didn't. And it was a mistake because I ended up not being able to use Crusade at convenient times. But by switching to Convergence, now I can use it at those more convenient times. So it's better for that. But there's only so many fights where it's useful for that as well. So it's a weird one. But it's still worth getting at a good item level. I mean, I have a 915 one. It's still a high simming one. But it depends on fight length and the ebb and flow of the fight. The way I use my Crusades on Mythic Gul'dan, obviously I use it at the start. I then use my second one during phase 1 as well. Occasionally I get thrown out with Bonds of Fel. I don't like Gul'dan. Then, it usually, and this is with Convergence of Fates, comes off cooldown just before the second storm. So I don't use it then. So the first storm, sorry. So I wait for that first storm. And then I use it for the second time. Now, if I wasn't using Convergence of Fates, I would still be able to use those first 3 Crusades at the same time. That's what made me stop equipping it when we got close to killing it. But it was a mistake because it's the next one that matters. The next time it is available is there's the point after, like, I can't remember if it's the 3rd or 4th storm. The 4th storm, no. The 3rd storm, sorry. The one where you get the storm and the wind sort of at the same time. That's the one where you've got to burst Gul'dan down really, really quickly. Like, really quickly. Now, obviously, you need Crusade for that. Without Convergence of Fates, my Crusade is not available for that. At least not for a good 10-15 seconds. Whereas, with it, it is available. So I can use it straight away. In fact, now we kill it so quickly, I don't actually even get the full use out of my Crusade. And it's annoying. But, you know, it's at least ready to do that burst bit. And then the next time it becomes available is on, I think, the 2nd Illidari ad, like the Blade of Azinoth ad. And then it'll be available for the very last bit when you've got the 3 debuffs on Illidan and you're basically going to beast him down and kill him. So just having that Convergence of Fate, it doesn't get me any extra uses of Crusade out in the fight. It just allows me to use it at more convenient times and therefore be able to DPS for more of the duration. I cannot use it for the full duration every time I use it on Gul'dan. It's not possible. But I can get more use out of it by using Convergence. Yeah, Gul'dan is particularly annoying with that. What don't I like about our tier 20 appearance? It just looks terrible. It looks like it's made out of Lego. The shoulders are okay, but they're not an improvement on the tier 6 shoulders. But they're okay. The rest of it doesn't look like it's modelled on the tier 6 at all. It's clunky. It's dreadful. Can't even tell you. So no, I do sometimes use the tier 6 transmog, but I will not. In fact, I'm thinking about it now. I think the tier 6 transmog is probably the... When was that? I mean, that was 10 years ago, wasn't it? Or maybe 9 years ago. Let me think. Maybe 9 years ago. And yet, I don't think I use any other sets that have come out more recently for transmog. That's how bad the designs are. We had all the really good sets in like vanilla and TBC. All the ones since then might be technically higher res, but they're just not good. No, yeah, it might be. No, I can't remember when TBC was out. 2008, 2007, really, wasn't it? It came out in 2007, didn't it? So 2008 is probably when I had my full tier 6. So 9 years. And I don't bother to use any sets after that. Most of the sets up to that were okay. I say most. Tier 1 and tier 3 were awful. Actually, no, half of them were good. Judgment was good. Avengers was good. Lightbringer was good. Justicars was decent as well. In fact, I was trying to find my Justicars set for transmog, but I must have deleted it before the new transmog system came in. So I'm going to have to go back and get that. I'm going to have to go and do some tier 4 raids again to get those pieces back. So I can do my Terralian transmog. It's nothing to do with the colours either. I just don't like the design. With the new raid not having Holy Avenging Wrath Relics back to Black, it might be back to Blackrock Hold Farm, yeah, or just do it because it, you know, the Holy Wrath of the Ashbringer Relics do drop off the second boss in Nighthold. So, you know, if you can get into groups that do at least Chronomatic Anomaly, especially on Mythic, then that could be good to get in on as well, because it is just the second boss. The Judgment set's alright, but no, there's quite a lot of sets that are good. Not the helms, obviously. You know, Blizzard have never been able to do... The only decent helm that doesn't look completely ridiculous is actually the Avengers one, but that wasn't anything... That's not a Paladin specific set. There's nothing Paladin-y about that. That's like a bug one. And looks basically the same. It's a recolor of the Warrior one anyway. I have a 905 Fire Wrath of the Ashbringer Relic anyway, so I'm in no, like, that's all right at the moment. And as I say, we get the second boss gives us the Bis Fire Relic. The only downside is I also think it's Bis Relic for a few others. So whereas our Bis Relic for Holy is not Bis for anyone else, there's hardly anyone else who even uses Holy, but that particular trait is not Bis for others. I think the Fire one happens to be Bis for some others as well, some other specs. So we might have more competition on the Fire one. But the good thing is we only need one of them. Tier 2 would be your go-to if there was a good matching alliance mount for it. Is there not? Yeah, there must be. What about the Headless Horseman's mount? That's sort of black. I mean, it's green fire, but rather than... Ideally, you'd have that with like a yellow fire coming out of its nostrils or something. Purple Judgment. Purple Judgment's what non-paladins do when they want to pretend they're a paladin, like Death Knights or Warriors. There's no need to use it on an actual paladin. It's what they did in the early days of TBC when they couldn't be asked to design new sets. They just did recolours of the vanilla ones. Right, we've got another little pause. Anything else anyone wants to sort of discuss, ask? Tauren. Oh my goodness. No, 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 no. No. The fact that there are no sets that suit a Tauren is entirely your own fault. Because what? Seriously. In fact, my experience of Tauren Paladins was like back in vanilla. Obviously, they didn't have Tauren Paladins. Or even Paladins at all on Horde. But I remember... In fact, it was because of that, I think. The dungeon set for Paladins... Lightforge was... I saw it in Warsong Gulch. A Tauren warrior in full... like Lightforge. And I actually remember saying at the time to my guild, this is the saddest sight I've ever seen. Thank goodness Tauren can't be Paladins. And then they made them. So what will be the good opener with the tier 20 set? Blade of Justice, Judgment, Crusade, Spend. And then Wake of Ashes, go for it. And after that, yeah. And build, you know, I mean, it's the same now, only we don't need that Crusader strike. I suppose Horde, what they can do is they can obviously use their... I've forgotten what it's called now. Arcane Torrent. But there won't be any need for that. It's at least not in the first few seconds. Yeah, you can't say the G word in this channel. It's a banned word. As well as a few variations of it. You can behave yourself, Winnie. Oh, I'm not familiar with PvP sets for anything really. So I don't have any views on them because I don't PvP. And during Cataclysm, I only really turned up at the end of it anyway because like I took a break from like I played the first tier in Wrath and I was so appalled by it. I thought, oh, that's it, the game's dead now. This is terrible. Little realizing that the very next tier was going to be really good, but I couldn't have known that at the time. I just had to go on the evidence of what was in front of me, and I thought this is dreadful. Here I am playing, and at the time I was playing in a very high guild, well inside the top 100, like 70, 69, 70, something like that. So I was putting quite a lot of effort into it, and again fitting it around work and all that, and I just thought, sorry, it's not worth it. So I quit and I started playing other games like Lord of the Rings Online and Warhammer Online, and then I didn't come back to like Dragon Soul. So, but I don't PvP anyway, so I don't really know what the sets look like. That is the worst variation on the word gnome I've ever seen, Cypher. How on earth does your brain work that you think that collection of letters will do it? And what do they do 10% more DPS than? A rock? Like... There are some tier sets that are okay. Like, trying to think now. There was one in Mop that was decent. I've forgotten which one now. But just because it was decent doesn't mean so. Because the thing is, there's still several sets that are better, so I still wouldn't use it. No, gnomes would make terrible paladins. I don't even believe they were made priests. That was asking for trouble. When I played Warhammer Tabletop, it was fantasy. I had also played 40k, but I only played that every now and then. I never really got into 40k. Fantasy Battle was what I played properly. Until World of Warcraft came along, because I used to do Warhammer Fantasy Battle really seriously. Like, you know, I went to tournaments and stuff like that. And then World of Warcraft came along, and I just stopped. So the only thing I know about it now is I think I need to turn these lights on. Not that it's oops, hello. Is that it's from a friend of mine who works as an illustrator at Games Workshop. So he occasionally tells me a little bit about what the game's doing now. But I don't have time to play it. So all I know is they've got this like chaos has won type thing. So it's all change, which I'm not keen on. But yes, yes, well, a very good friend of mine does some of the art, so it should be amazing, yeah. He was a very talented artist all the way we were growing up, actually. Very naturally talented. But I think the issue is you do have a lot of talented artists. You know, when you see some fan art, for example, some of it is awful. Like I see some of the stuff that even gets retweeted. Like you'll tweet something to World of Warcraft. Oh, I've done this fan art of like Tyrande or something, and some of it's shocking. You think, did a child draw this? And then, but some of it is really, really amazing. And then you think some people just do this for fun and don't even like sell it. Anyway, should probably bring it back onto Ret type stuff. If there's anything other than that, as I say, we'll sort of wind it down if we've exhausted all the topics we need to go through. But let's have a look. So with the tier 24 piece, would I be going Cloak or Liadrins? It would depend on... You're assuming I'm going to tie it with the belt, which I may or may not. It depends on the fight. Liadrins, just like the belt, favours me being able to get full use out of Crusade. And if I can't use Crusade to its fullest, because either I have to move or some event happens that stops me using Crusade or something like that, it devalues those legendaries, so I'd probably think of something else. Who do I think can swing the light better? Uther. Tyrion was an idiot. An absolute cretin. He was killed by a demon. How embarrassing can you get? Uther was far better. He was at least killed by a Death Knight who was a former paladin and who would have known his moves. Obviously, Tyrallion was the best of the lot because he's still alive. Unless, of course, they sully his reputation. Because I am really curious what they're going to do with Tyrallion in Argus. They're keeping it very, very quiet. It makes no difference. You don't need any gear at all to bubble and hearth. Like, every paladin knows to do that in a dodgy spot. He could have been back in Stormwind, no problem at all. But no. Kept going on about the light instead of just clicking bubble and hearth. What value do you give to Wrath Relics? Right, we did this a bit earlier. Let's put it back up. This is what someone else has produced based upon Tomb of Sargeras gear. So that's not necessarily the same as your gear. So the value given to it, let's tidy this up, get rid of that, is relative values are like this. Wrath of the Ashbringer 26, Blade of Justice 115. This 22 here is for the Divine Storm one, but that's only any use if you're going to use Divine Storm, i.e. there's at least 2 targets. Trinkets, take your pick. The ones that are being mooted as being potential BIS, Spectre of the Betrayer and Vial of Convulsive Shadows. But there's conditions with them to get the best out of them. And also, Blizzard could nerf them at any moment. I am always wary about saying, oh, these are going to be the best trinkets. Because every time, and I mean every time a new raid comes out, where there are decent trinkets in it anyway, obviously we've only had Nighthold this time, they nerf it as soon as it's released. You are a bit late, yeah. I mean, if you've got questions, by all means, throw them in there. But we've been going for like an hour and 40 minutes now. I think we've covered most things, but I don't mind going over a few others. But yeah, so in terms of trinkets, you know, they're all like cinders under certain conditions can be good. And actually, my sims were saying it'd be good even without those conditions, but I don't know. Other people disagree. Maybe I need to run more of them, but you know, they were today, so I don't know. Vial of Convulsive Shadows. If there's going to be a nerf to a trinket, I would guess that one. I don't understand how that can possibly be good on a boss fight in terms of the way it works. Spectre of the Betrayer depends on if it's a static fight. If the boss is going to stay in the same place and you are able to be at the boss for basically the whole fight, then yeah, that's going to be a really, really good one. Everyone's going to want that though. There's going to be high competition for it. Cradle of Anguish is good on the condition that you can retain above 50% health. Umbral Moonglave's obviously not going to be good for single target, but you know, for Mythic Plus stuff like that, it's going to be good. Racers, what do I think about the new Night Elf Paladin followers? I think our Paladin followers are dreadful. Out of our Paladin followers, we have 2 Night Elves, one of which is dead, a Demon, an Idiot. So we don't really have many decent ones out of that. So our champions are absolutely dreadful. Shocking, in fact. Will I be doing a guide on talents and tricks used for each boss in TOS? Yes, but only when I've done them. I haven't done them yet. We don't do PTR in my guild. So I won't be able to do that yet. I will only be able to do that. Crack. Nearly had my drink over there. Once I've done it all. Which one is the idiot? The idiot who you met him in Asuna and then he got himself captured. You know. And you had to go and rescue him. That was the idiot. Another one who forgot to bubble hearth. I don't know what's up with these fools. And that doesn't even include the 3 that I didn't even level up because there was no point, because their like bonuses were so crap, or you know, identical to ones I already had. One of them, I didn't even level that one up. I don't acknowledge Tauren as being suitable for paladins at all. You know, they shouldn't. Blizzard lost a lot of credibility with that. No, they exist only because some pain in the arse said, oh, it's not really very fair that Horde only get 1 race choice for paladins. They shouldn't actually get any race choices for paladins, because even like Blood Elves is a hell of a stretch. It's a hell of a stretch. They had to severely change the law to even allow that. But Tauren, they're tree huggers. They're druids. Shamans as well, you can sort of, at a pinch, accept. Paladins, no. No. I would not even consider going Tauren. Under any circumstances. If you're asking about the Petrali, if you're asking about the new Paladin mounts, the class mounts, I think the horses that you've seen are what they are for all races. I don't think they've, in fact, I'm sure they haven't done Kodo Elec equivalents. They are as you see them for everyone. They haven't done race-specific ones. It's just class and specs. Well, class-specific ones with spec-specific recolors. Yes. I mean, I remember in vanilla, just for a laugh, I made a couple of Tauren, and I made a Tauren hunt. I made one Tauren warrior. The problem with that is I couldn't actually see what I was attacking. At the time, I didn't know how the macro to zoom out, so I had like what is standard, and at the time that was pretty zoomed in. So I was hitting stuff, but I couldn't see what I was hitting because the Tauren's arse was covering it. And then I did a Tauren hunter, and I leveled it up to a certain point, and I got a Kodo pet, So between the Tauren and the Kodo pet, they basically cover the screen. Couldn't see anything. I don't even know. I don't even know what they were thinking. I mean, the Tauren, I'm pretty sure, from what I remember in Warcraft 3, were fairly lean. They weren't big and fat like the Tauren we get in World of Warcraft. They were more like the female Tauren. So I really don't know where the design came from for World of Warcraft. I don't remember them being like that in Warcraft 3. But it is a very long time since I played it. But I'm pretty sure they were a lot slimmer than that. I can't really say about any bosses in Tomb of Sargeras because I haven't actually done any of them. All I've done is read up a bit and watch a few videos, but because I haven't done them, they're not really sticking in my head properly. I sometimes mix up abilities from two different bosses because I haven't actually experienced them. And it's not like I've sat and studied them for hours and hours because I haven't had time. Obviously I'm going to have to put in a bit more time in the next week, but yeah, so I don't know at the moment. But all I would say in general is that unless there's going to be a significant proportion of ad that has to die, you're probably not going to use Divine Hammer. No. No. The Legion will always be there as long as Sargeras is there. I've said before, I do not see the point in defeating the Legion in World of Warcraft. I can see it if they decide to do another Warcraft, like what you might call Warcraft. If this is Warcraft 4, then Warcraft 5, if you want to call it that. At that point, I can see the last expansion being defeating Sargeras. And then we could have, like, I always imagine it this way. We know that Azeroth is an entity, a Titan. At some point, if we do our job right, well, basically, either Azeroth is going to die, in which case we're all buggered, or Azeroth is going to hatch, in which case we're all buggered. So I can see as a very final expansion that we defeat Sargeras, Azeroth hatches, we all have to bugger off in Draenei spaceships somewhere else. Now, then Warcraft 5 would not be on Azeroth, it would be on a different planet that we are colonising, and I can then see the Void Lords as being the main existential threat. But I do not see any sense in us defeating Sargeras now. Or not during World of Warcraft. Until the end. It would be a bit like Lord of the Rings Online, getting to the point where they defeat Sauron. It's like, where'd you go from there? There are a few things you can do, sure, but it's a bit of a... After that, it's a bit downhill. Sims do currently show Convergence of Fates being super strong, but the thing is, all you have to do is change the duration of the fight a little bit, and you know the value of Convergence of Fates depends very much on the duration of the fight. You start monkeying about with the fight duration, and you will start to see very, very different results. So I think what you're talking about there, Haniel, are the Sims that are on the Paladin Discord, and they are based upon a fixed fight duration. And it could well be that at that fixed fight duration, Convergence of Fates just so happens to get you an extra crusade out. If you were to lengthen or shorten the fight a bit, you may well find a very different value. Do I think there might be more than one raid after? I don't know. I didn't think so to begin with. I got the impression, because the timing would work out fine for me. The way I envisaged Legion going is, so it came out, let's say September. It came out August the 30th, but let's say September in terms of the first full month. So where we are now is, so Tomb of Sargeras is coming out late June. Now, they've said that tiers should last about 4 to 5 months. So that means Tomb of Sargeras, the raid, Argus would be out sooner, because I think they're going to keep staggering it. So 7.3 would be when we'd go to Argus, but Tomb of Sargeras will still be the raid then, and then 7.3.5 probably the actual raid. So let's say 4.5 months. So let's say, you know, we have the rest of June, July, August, September, October, and maybe the Argus raid comes out in November, round about BlizzCon time-ish. And let's say that lasts, because Christmas is going to be in the way, 5 months. So that would be end of March. So around about April is sort of when we'd be due for another raid. But the way I can see it is, if let's say the next expansion is due for release after... It used to be the case that expansions lasted about 22 months. That would make it coming out... I know they probably wouldn't do this because they never have done. But that would make it coming out at the beginning of July. So that would give you a few months after... So Tomb of Sargeras could be the last one. There'd only be a few extra months of effectively no new raid content. But they may still bring out pre-expansion content. And everyone would be happy. But as I say, the thing that is wrong with that timing is it means bringing out a new expansion during summer. And they've never done that before. So I strongly suspect they have a reason for that. Because it's particularly annoying for me. Like, summer is always like... I, as a teacher, effectively have a quarter of the year off. And yet, no expansion has ever gone out during that 25%. Like, it's always come out during term time when I have to fit leveling around work and everything. And after so many expansions, I cannot believe it's a random thing. I think there's a deliberate aspect to it. I think they quite deliberately don't want to bring out a new expansion during June, July or August. Because they never have. What there might be... The thing is, because we know so little about Argus, we also know very little about what their end of expansion plans are. What is possible is that we get a Trial of Valor type raid to tide us over. So one that the top guilds can get out of the way fairly quickly. And that, because remember, you've got to have a period of time where people can alpha and beta test the new expansion. It's very difficult to do that if you're also, like for the serious guilds, if they're also having to do raids in live, PTR testing for the next patch's worth of stuff, and alpha beta testing for the new expansion. That's not realistic. And one of the great strengths of Blizzard is that they do give you a decent amount of time with the open alpha and beta phases. So for people to extensively test things. You can only do that if you're not ramming those same people with lots of content in live game. Do my students know that I'm a WoW player? Many of them do, yes. They happen to cross my channel without me pointing it out, I have to say. No, it's not going to be ready to release in February. It can't be. They've got to test it. There needs to be. You cannot bring out an expansion less than a year before you announce it. It's got to be tested. You've got to think back to it. What were Blizzard saying the past couple of expansions? They were saying that they wanted 1 year expansion. So expansion comes out and it lasts for a year and then you have another one. Why did they want that? Was that the developers' ideas? No, how could it be? That's the people with the money, because they recognise they're in this cycle of people aren't always staying subscribed, but they are buying the expansions. So they want the money from the expansions. It's eventually been seen now to be unworkable. So, oh, you mean the beta? Okay, well that's maybe more realistic. I am hoping that the beta would be sooner than that. But it all depends on when they intend the game to come out. You need a good year of alpha or open alpha stroke beta. Or not a full, it doesn't have to be a full year. What did we have this time? We had 9 months, didn't we? So 9 months of open alpha stroke beta before Legion launched. So you would think a similar amount of time. But again, you have to... This is where the past few expansions have actually helped with the testing, because the content droughts, as bad as they've been, it has allowed people who've been in the beta and alpha, which I've been quite lucky in that regard. Hopefully that continues. I've been able to get a good amount of testing in it, because I'm able, I know I only have to go on, if you only have to go on to raid once a week, and then the rest of the time's your own, so you can actually spend it in the alpha and beta, and you can do lots of testing. Whereas if you have to do your raiding and also some PTR stuff for the next, because obviously you always focus on the content that's most imminent, then you're not going to get people doing a lot of testing in alpha and beta. The only people who are going to be doing a lot in it are like full-time YouTubers who've got the time to do it, but they're not always, they sometimes are good, but they're only going to test certain things. Am I happy with the new how the new tier bonuses work? I've not been happy with our tier bonuses for this whole expansion. I mean, I know there's only been 2, but no, I'm not happy with them. I don't like them. But in terms of how useful they'll be, obviously the 2 set tier 20 is going to change our gameplay a little bit, which is, I suppose, what tier bonuses do. It's not worth trying to change your gameplay for the 4 set, though. You might as well just use Judgment as you normally would. You don't get any more out of it by trying to game it, according to Sims anyway. I mean, the last time we had a good tier set bonus was Hellfire Citadel, when we had our extra 2 charges on Crusade. No, not Crusade, sorry, Avenging Wrath. Because it gave you the flexibility of when to use them then. So it allowed you, when there was a key moment, when you had to do lots of damage, or an ad, like Soccer Fire was a good example with the Dominators, then it allowed you to burst them down. And it made us really useful for that. Well, the actual bonuses for tier 20 are actually not better than the tier 19 ones. The only thing that's going to make us want the tier 20 is the fact that, well, obviously it'll be higher item level, and that combination will make it better. Also, of course, they've nerfed the tier 19. Or they will be doing. Because the 2 set is going to be 7% more damage from Holy Power spenders, whereas at the moment it's 10%. So 30% nerf to that. I wasn't hugely keen on Seraphim. I had to use it when I had to use it, but... I mean, admittedly, I wasn't keen on this either. I mean, this was just a boring one. A flat-up damage increase that didn't require you to do anything special for it. And the 4 set was just a random proc, which will sometimes naturally get wasted. You can't help it. At least with this one, we're not wasting Holy Power. As long as we remember not to use Blade of Justice. Well, on 3, but there's no reason for us to use it on 3. If we had 3, we can use a spender, then we can use this. And another spender straight after it. So it does, from that point of view, is less... Just forgetting about the numbers, I suppose, is less annoying than this one. But it's still... I'm not impressed. What tier pieces should we get? Right. I will... It depends on what you can get. Obviously, things like sockets and Titan Forge and stuff like that, including what Titan Forge pieces you have from Nighthold, will have a material effect. What has been worked out by people and put onto the Paladin Discord is this. So the tier pieces, when you're in completely tier Tomb of Sargeras gear, that are recommended are the shoulders, the chest, the gloves and the legs. But you've got to remember, if it's an AoE fight or if you're doing Mythic plus Dungeons or something like that, you might want to use the Legendary chest which means maybe you should use the tier Helm. The rest of it is fairly straightforward because although there's a Rets legendary for the shoulder slot, it's not a great one. So those are fairly solid pieces. Yes, well, when you've got the 2-piece tier 20, Zeal will be the one to take, yes. No point in messing about with Fires of Justice at that point. Well, it depends. Again, this is where it changes. Like for tier 19, I have the Helm because the breastplate I have an off piece, which is 925 with a socket. So it's like 925 haste versatility with a socket, 905 tier chest with mastery. Yeah. So again, and the same thing will apply. Obviously, if you were to get some Tomb of Sargeras shoulders that were Titan forged with a socket, then you might not want to use the tier shoulders. So it depends on what legendaries you want to use, and it depends on what you have. This is just assume everything was just baseline, that there were no Titan forge, and that there was no sockets or anything like that. This is the and obviously there's no legendaries included here, but this is generally speaking what you would get. Yeah, I mean, I can put those back up. Again, these are sims that were done a week, well, just under a week ago by Sol Sacra. Basically, what is being said is, what you can probably say is this. If you've got Liadrin's Fury Unleashed, Whisper of the Nathrazim, Seal of the High Lord, or Chain of Thrain, you can basically use any two of those as you wish. You know, in terms of deciding which two to use, assuming you had all four, and of course you can only have a maximum of 3 of those at the moment, you base that decision on the type of fight. Obviously, 2 of those legendaries only work during Crusade. So is it a fight where you can use Crusade to its maximum, or are there times where you cannot possibly use your full duration of Crusade, in which case it's losing value? Also, you have to think about other pieces. So if you had a really good cloak, a high Titan Forge cloak piece, then you might not want to use the legendary cloak. And the same for any other slots, come to that. So you have to consider it in terms of the gear you have and the nature of the fight and what you think would be best for you. But any of those 4 legendaries are all perfectly suitable for a single target fight. And then the legendary chest comes into it for any fight where there's a significant amount of AoE. It would have to be, now that they nerfed it, a fairly substantial emphasis on AoE. Okay, so we've just gone past the 2-hour mark, so I'll do a usual thing. I mean, I have gone over all the sort of basic elements, so if there's any other questions to come out, again, now is the time to ask them. And as I say, I would put this on, I'll put this on YouTube as well. It might take a little while because it'll be over 2 hours already, and it takes a while to render it and then upload it. But it will be available in the next, like, 10 hours, let's say. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions they want to throw in just at the moment, then we'll go through the last few. And then, as I say, we'll call it a day on that. And then I'll have to get on to carrying on with my Ret Paladin guide for 7.2.5, of which I need to do 2, the Essentials guide and the Companion guide, as well as a couple of other specialist guides, but they can probably wait till next weekend. Will I save Chromie? No. Not that I have anything against Chromie other than her poor taste in bodies. But it's a really good piece of content. I did a little bit on the PTR. Not enough, unfortunately. I didn't have time to do enough to be able to do any sort of video on it. I was hoping during the half-term holiday to have a good go at it, but then there was other things I had to do instead. But I think it's a really good piece of content. But I don't think that I'm going to have... I'll pick at it. I'll do a bit at a time. But I'm not going to go into it full on because I have so much else that I want to do. Spectre and what for trinket choices? The two standard ones that have been pushed are Spectre and Vial, but there's conditions. If you don't have favourable conditions, they're not as good as they make out. And Blizzard, like I have talked about trinkets. When this goes on YouTube, just check it out again, so I don't keep going over it. But Blizzard can change trinkets and often do at the last minute. In fact, if they don't make any changes to trinkets the way they are at the moment for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I will be amazed because it'll be the first time they've done it for years. Yes, I am currently... I thought the patch would be coming out on the 20th, 21st, which is when they announced the Tomb of Sargeras. I wasn't expecting them to do it a week earlier. So I am now having to spend this week... I thought I had another week, basically. But it will be out, and it will be out at the latest on Monday. The title. I will do the Chromie thing eventually. It's just that I won't be in a great rush to do it. But yes, there's going to be a 7.2.5 guide for the Essentials guide will need updating. I've started narrating it today. I need to try and finish that off tonight, and then tomorrow put in all the graphics and edit it together, as well as do all the other things. So yes, it will be like the Withered Armies. It will be useful to do it up to a point. Potentially. But I'm not going to like rush to do it. I will pick at it. I will do a bit each week probably. But yeah, the Chromie thing is not going to be content we're going to do throughout the rest of Legion. How long it will last, I don't really know. No, I haven't. I mean, there are still things I could do with the training scenario for. I don't have the Fox mount. I would at some point like to get it. I did get the Protection Paladin hidden artifact from it. Right, last call for any other Ret-related questions before, as I say, I'll finish it off. Remember, just the general, if those who maybe don't know, WoW discussion I'll do on Tuesday evenings as always. Well, I say as always. Occasionally the work might get in the way, but that's not going to happen for a few months at least. So that's Tuesdays at the same time this started, 7 PM UK time. And I'll still, again, for the foreseeable future, be carrying on the Saturday 3 o'clock one, where I'm just playing something else. Pizzas or tacos? Pizza. Tacos just seem too messy to me. But well, I need to get the Ret. I do need to get the Ret guide done. I've got to carry on narrating it, and that takes quite a while, actually, longer than you might think. Because you have to edit out all the ums and ahs and stuff like that. And then, as I say, I've got to do the narration first and edit all that together. So I've got to carry on doing that tonight. I've really got to get that done tonight. And then you have to put a bit of a layer of a background behind it. And then you have to put like the graphics of the stuff you're talking about behind it. And then every now and then you might want to highlight something from some footage. So I've then got to get the right footage because I'm not very good at always labeling my videos. And I haven't actually got a lot of footage from the last couple of weeks either, so it's going to have to be older stuff anyway. That doesn't matter. And then edit it all together, and oh my god, and then put all the timestamps in and stuff like that while it's rendering. So yeah, so my hope is I can get the narration done today, Then I can get the graphics and the editing done tomorrow. And then on Monday, I can upload it then, but not list it. And then when it's uploaded but not listed, try and put in all the timestamps and stuff like that for the different chapters, which I'm hoping I can get to work better than the previous ones. Because previously I've just put like timestamps in the comments section, but I'm hoping I can actually put it on the video itself. But it's the first time I'll have done that. And so I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit better. But it will be up before the patch releases, which basically means, from my point of view, it will be up by Monday evening. Or it will be uploaded, or made public, I should say, Monday evening at the latest. But I'm also hoping I'm going to get some time to do some general 7.2.5 videos as well. But anyway, thanks for coming. As I say, I'll probably do another one of these in about a month once we've actually had a proper go at Tomb of Sargeras. Usually try and do one of these a month where it makes sense to do it. But I think, yeah, after about another 4 or 5 weeks, we'll have done some mythic. We'll have certainly done normal and heroic. So we'll catch up then. So I'll see you later.